range of risks associated with opal mining, and there have been serious injuries and fatalities of opal miners in New South Wales. Miners need to take precautions to ensure they are safe in the field. Hoists, shafts, and their associated components can be particularly dangerous unless they have good mechanical and electrical design, safety features, regular maintenance to ensure they remain in a safe condition, and that safe procedures are followed. Some of the hazards include working under suspended loads, working at heights, and falling objects. Miners and workers should never be under a suspended load without adequate controls in place. This includes under a materials bucket. If work must be done under a materials bucket, it must be securely locked in position to ensure it cannot freefall and strike a person. If a bucket becomes stuck, never put yourself or workers under it, as a free-falling bucket can be fatal. In 2016, a miner was in the hoist sump cleaning out rocks. The rocks were preventing the lower limit switch from triggering, so the power would not switch off, and the rope overran onto the drum in the opposite direction. While in the sump, it is believed the miner accidentally triggered the lower limit switch, which cut power to the hydraulics. It caused the empty bucket, weighing 133 kilograms, to freefall about 15 meters in 3 seconds. His injuries were fatal. Falls from height are a major risk when working in and around shafts and resulted in an unacceptable number of serious injuries and fatalities in the Lightning Ridge region. Falls can occur during working around an unprotected shaft, installing a collar, hoist setup, maintenance on the surface and in the shaft, and access and egress to the mine. In 2018, a miner fell 20 meters from a shaft hoist access ladder, landing in a hoist bucket. He suffered a compound fracture to his left femur and both tibias. It took nearly 2 hours to locate him and a further 3 hours to rescue and transport him from the mine. In another incident, a miner was almost at the top of the shaft when the access ladder failed. It was not adequately secured at the surface. The miner fell to the bottom of the shaft and sustained serious injuries, including multiple broken bones, a spinal injury, and dislocated arm. More than 2 years on, he is still recovering. When using a ladder, always maintain 3 points of contact. For example, 1 foot and 2 hands, or 1 hand and 2 feet. Also, make sure you or any workers using the ladders are physically capable, well, and fit to climb. Fall arrest systems provide safer shaft access. Safe Work Australia recommends using anchorage lines or rails with long vertical ladders. Alternatively, a rod or tube can be installed alongside the ladder to latch onto at set intervals, thereby limiting the maximum fall distance. A full body harness connected to an attachment point should be worn. And never ride a materials hoist. There are many dangers associated with riding a materials hoist, with serious and potentially fatal consequences. Past incidents have involved feet getting stuck between the ladder rungs, miners caught between the bucket and the shaft wall, rope failure resulting in miners falling in the bucket at speed to the bottom of the shaft, miners ejected or dumped from the hoist bucket onto the surface or into the back of the truck. Persons riding hoists must comply with the Work Health and Safety Mining Regulations released in September 2022. These require specific controls, including ropes and devices to withstand expected forces, controls to prevent overwind, overspeed, and uncontrolled movement, a fail-safe brake capable of stopping and holding the shaft conveyance, an emergency arresting device to hold the conveyance, usually a device to catch the ladder if the rope or winch drive were to fail, and the conveyance must have protection for the person, such as a cage. Person riding hoists must have energy lockout or isolation for mechanical and electrical devices, so work and maintenance can be carried out safely. There must be controls in place to prevent people, rocks, material, and plant from falling down the shaft. Person riding hoists must be tested and inspected to make sure they remain safe. A record of the inspection and testing should be documented and kept. The inspection should be completed at least once every year. When in the shaft, loose objects can fall on or hit people if precautions are not in place. Loose objects can also cause trip hazards at the shaft entry. Before going down a shaft, remove all loose objects at the top. The shaft collar should be higher than ground level to prevent anything falling below. It should be surrounded by timber or steel barriers on 4 sides to prevent tools and equipment from inadvertently being pushed under the mesh cover and falling down the shaft. The mesh size on the cover should be small enough to prevent large stones or common tools from being able to fall through, and it should provide a suitable means of securing the ladder. Any items lowered in the shaft must be appropriately secured, and a hard hat should always be worn in the shaft. One miner was on the ladder in the shaft as an angle grinder was lowered in a bucket. The grinder fell out of the bucket and struck him. He was not wearing a hard hat and suffered a significant laceration to his head. His injuries were fatal. Great care also needs to be taken when working around the shaft, and equipment should be placed at a safe distance. In another incident, a miner went to start his generator located on the back of his ute, which was parked near the shaft. The opening was not protected at the time. As the miner pulled the generator cord, it broke. He fell headfirst down the shaft into the materials bucket. The fall was fatal. Most activities on a mine site can be potentially hazardous, and things don't always go to plan. Safe mining is about properly managing the risks by ensuring the best available controls are in place to lessen the likelihood of injury to you, your workers, or damage to plant. For more guidance on safe strategies and systems for opal mining, visit the New South Wales Resources Regulator website.